Ever grappled with a decision that left your conscience unquiet?
Jumping right into the deep end reminds me of the moral dilemmas and decisions we need to take in the real world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We get so immersed that it feels like we're making those decisions in real life instead of a virtual reality.
Reasons why video games are not just mere entertainment, but have transformed into an expressive platform.
And speaking of gaming going beyond just entertainment, today's game discussion heads in towards those lines, doesn't it, Helena?
Definitely, Raymond. We're about to discuss one of the iconic games that pushed the boundaries by making players ponder and question their decisions. Today's focus is on the trailblazing frontier epic, Red Dead Redemption 2.
And more so about its protagonist, Arthur Morgan. His choices really make you ruminate over every move in the game. Every choice feels so darn personal.
You're so right. Arthur, his journey, the choices he makes, it's like we become him.
The Wild West, Helena. Notorious for its lawlessness and frontier lifestyle, Red Dead Redemption 2 takes us right into the heart of it.
Definitely. And Red Dead Redemption 2, a sequel, is set in an earlier timeline than its predecessor, right?
Yes, it's quite an interesting play where the second installment of the Red Dead series is actually a prequel to the original. Set around 1899, the Wild West era is ending and a new modern age is looming on the horizon. The Wild West, with its rowdy saloons, majestic horses, and gun-toting cowboys, sets the perfect setup submerged in outlandish adventure.
What intrigues me about this game is the smallest things are so carefully detailed. The artwork, the dialogue, even the way Arthur's beard grows over time. All these finer details add authenticity.
Absolutely, and it's not just for aesthetic purposes. The game uses those details to make you feel like you're actually living in that world. From the atmospheric sounds to the visually accurate representation of the West, and even the nuances like the fading of Arthur's scars over time, which subtly show the passage of time.
Also, isn't it true that these details aren't just impressive, but they also impact the gameplay and the game world?
True. The world reacts to your actions. For instance, you need to keep your guns clean for the best performance. Your horse, a key companion in the game, has its unique personality attributes, and you have to look after it, which further accentuates the immersive experience of the game.
And when we're discussing this narrative depth, we cannot overlook the contribution of its creator, Rockstar Games, the powerhouse behind Red Dead Redemption 2, wouldn't you say, Raymond?
Absolutely, Helena. Rockstar Games is known for their detail-oriented and immersive game worlds, with Red Dead Redemption 2 being no exception. Honestly, I'd even argue that they exceeded their own bar with this one.
It's certainly a huge leap from their earlier ventures, right? Anything specific you'd like to point out?
The narrative scope, Helena. The vastness of this game's narrative is mind-boggling. We're familiar with Rockstar's knack for crafting detailed worlds, but the narrative depth in redefining characters, it's something else.
Laying down the layers of Arthur Morgan, our protagonist, must have been a challenging task.
Without question, Arthur Morgan isn't just a cowboy. He's a complex character grappling with his own morality. It's the farthest thing from a cowboy stereotype you'd expect.
The narrative journeys we see him embark on, that's what defies the clichés, right?
Indeed. And you can sense that depth with each passing event in his life. It's a fascinating character study nested within an engaging gameplay.
A combination that evidently works given the game's undeniable success and popularity. Ready to dive a layer deeper and dissect our protagonist's story, Raymond? What's captivating about Arthur Morgan's journey is its moral uncertainty. Raymond, would you elaborate on this aspect?
Gladly. Right from the start, we're introduced to Arthur Morgan as a rugged outlaw. Yet as we progress, we see there's much more beneath the rough exterior. The moral complexities he faces. It's like wading through a muddy swamp.
And it's that muddiness that hits the player's emotions hard.
Precisely. He's caught in this constant tug-of-war between loyalty to his gang and wanting to do what's right. It's not so much about good versus evil, but rather dealing with moral shades of gray. For instance, many players recount the profound impact of Arthur's illness and how it was a pivotal turning point in his character journey. Thoughts, Helena?
Oh, absolutely. That was indeed a game changer. You start to question his past decisions and actions. It's like the game is nudging you to introspect, not just about Arthur, but also about how your moral compass aligns with his.
Yes, and it reflects our society, too. We're all dealing with our own moral dilemmas. This connection with Arthur, man, it's what makes this game narrative so rich and relatable.
Arthur Morgan's horse isn't just a transportation method or mobile storage, it's an extension of his character. Right, Raymond?
Oh, absolutely. Can't agree more. The horse in Red Dead Redemption 2 is far from a simple gaming mechanic. You need to take care, feed it, clean it, pat it, and even talk to it, building a bond along the way.
A bond that's incredibly poignant in a game that's so steeped in violence and brutality. That emotional connection between Arthur and his horse, it's something I believe gamers resonated with. Do you remember any specific instances where that bond was highlighted?
One that certainly comes to mind is the moment when his horse is fatally injured. And there's this heart-wrenching scene where Arthur whispers, "Thank you," as he leaves his loyal companion behind. I mean, even amidst this brutal survival scenario, you're shown the emotional vulnerability of this tough outlaw. Incredible.
It's a remarkable testament to Rockstar's level of detail. They've not just simulated the external world beautifully, they've also crafted these intricate emotional landscapes for the characters.
Yeah, it makes the character feel incredibly real. And it must have been a significant challenge for the game developers to achieve this effect, maintaining the balance between the depictions of broad strokes like grand strategy and these intimate moments. Yet they managed to weave these elements together into a seamless, deeply immersive narrative.
Now that you mention it, I recall reading comments from players about this. Many shared their experiences, narrating how they found themselves significantly affected by such moments. They didn't expect to be emotionally invested in a virtual horse. Yet they were. And that, my friends, is the magic of narrative-driven games like Red Dead Redemption 2.
Dutch van der Linde. He's the embodiment of the outlaw archetype, isn't he?
Oh, totally. Dutch is the personified chaos of the Wild West. He's also an incredibly compelling character, don't you think?
I do. And he adds complexity to Arthur's character arc. His role as Arthur's mentor and father figure juxtaposes his sometimes erratic and aggressive behavior. It creates such an intricate web of relationships.
And it's that relationship dynamic that tugs on the player's emotions. Dutch's wavering between a calculated leader and reckless tyrant influences the choices Arthur, and by extension, the players make. They find themselves torn between loyalty and morality based on Dutch's actions.
Right. John Marston, however, presents a different complexity altogether. He's been dealt a rough hand, and his struggle to do right by his family, even if it means resorting to a lawless path, reflects another facet of the Wild West era.
Absolutely. Much like Arthur, John is a victim of circumstances beyond his control. And this commonality breeds a strange kinship between them. It also influences the choices players make, navigating the complex dilemma between loyalty to companions and a somewhat skewed sense of justice.
In essence, these supporting characters aren't just side factors. They serve as catalysts, pulling and pushing Arthur, impacting the core storyline at multiple points. Game's narrative brilliantly utilizes their influences to shape the protagonist's journey.
Precisely. They're crucial to the narrative and help offer a fleshed-out, realistic storyline that hooks the players. Without these intricate character dynamics, Arthur's journey wouldn't be as memorable and emotionally stirring.
Isn't it fascinating how Red Dead Redemption 2 breathes life into its storyline? The seamless blend of dramatic tension, flashbacks, and plot twists truly make for a vivid and engaging narrative.
Oh, absolutely! I just love how the game employs flashbacks to provide context to Arthur's character. It gives us tantalizing glimpses into his past, which helps us understand and empathize with his current struggles. All that within an immersive Wild West setting.
And speaking of dramatic tension, how could we overlook those nail-biting moments where Arthur and his crew found themselves at odds with rival gangs, or the law itself?
Not to mention those unexpected plot twists. Just when you think you have everything figured out, bam! A fresh twist throws you off balance, keeping you on the edge of your seat. It's great storytelling at its best.
Those plot twists, Whether it's discovering a traitor within the gang or the shocking reality of Arthur's ill health, it's one blow after another. I'm always in awe how these events stir up deep emotions in players. They are pivotal in making us feel part of the narrative.
Absolutely. You feel triumph, despair, joy, and grief, all while sitting in front of a screen. You end up rooting for Arthur, understanding his dilemmas. It's that powerful narrative progression and intricate storyline that makes Red Dead Redemption 2 so uniquely captivating.
Now let's delve into the action sequences in Red Dead Redemption 2. I must admit I was blown away by how they've essentially infused story into action. I mean, it wasn't just a gunfight or a chase, it was a plot-moving moment. Would you agree, Helena?
Absolutely, Raymond. The action sequences are not just fillers but pivotal plot points. They often unravel crucial details, add to the tension, and sometimes alter the course of the story. But from a non-technical viewpoint, wouldn't you agree that they also enhance the realism of the Wild West setting?
Spot on, Helena. These action-packed moments intensify the sense of danger and uncertainty which is very characteristic of that era. You know, there were times when I was so engrossed, I had to snap myself out of it and remember it's just a game.
Ha ha, happens to the best of us. And we can't ignore the fact that these sequences also challenge us as players, forcing us to make decisions quickly. The stakes are high and our choices can heavily influence the narrative. It's storytelling that demands active participation, which, in my book, is revolutionary.
Seriously, this is my favorite part about them. Every gunfight, every chase, every heist forces the player to bear the weight of their decisions and face the consequences. One wrong move, and you might lose a member of your gang or fail a mission. It's thrilling and nerve-wracking, but it also adds a layer of narrative complexity. In such, you're not just playing, you're living the Wild West journey. Now, Helena, let's shift our focus towards the game's dialogues. As a gamer, I was thoroughly impressed by how each line of dialogue was meticulously chosen to reflect the character's personality. How did you find them as a marketing coordinator?
Oh, I have to talk about it. The dialogues were a significant part of the promotional material. And you know, justly so. They convey exactly what Rockstar Games wants the audience to recognize, the essence of each character.
I couldn't help but notice Arthur's narrative. From his rough exterior and cowboy charm comes thoughtful conversations. It is interesting how these dialogues touch upon his morally ambiguous past and his quest for redemption.
Yes, just highlights the genius in storytelling, doesn't it? Just like their actions, the words of these characters too have consequences. Quite a way to keep the players on their toes, don't you think?
Definitely. It reminded me of real-life social interactions, where every dialogue has its meaning and influence. I remember one scenario where I had the choice to either forgive or seek revenge, and I was haunted by the repercussions of my decision. Isn't it fascinating how games like Red Dead Redemption 2 have evolved to mimic real life?
It indeed is quite fascinating. And it's not all serious either. Some of those dialogues add humour, bringing a certain lightness amidst the high-stakes environment. This also helps to maintain the engagement of the players.
It's true. In summary, they brilliantly utilize dialogues mixed with player choices to drive their narrative. It doesn't just impact the story progression, but adds a unique depth to their characters. So with all this talk about choices, let's delve into the game's element of player agency. Red Dead Redemption 2 thrusts players into a world that reacts to their decisions. While this is seen in various aspects of the game, where do you think this is most evident, Helena?
Well, Raymond, off the top of my head, I'd say one area is the game's alternate endings. Based on choices made throughout the journey, players might experience a different ending to Arthur Morgan's tale. This not only adds a replayability factor, but also reinforces the weight of their decisions.
It is a significant narrative shift, isn't it? Most games traditionally had a fixed ending, but with the introduction of branching narratives, a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 is taking storytelling to dizzying heights.
Absolutely, and I think it's this very aspect that brings a sense of realism into the game. Just like life, you never truly know where your choices will lead you. In game narrative, This translates into a compelling and immersive experience where players become authors of their own stories.
And what's more, this narrative is not biased towards certain decisions. It allows for right or wrong, moral or immoral decisions, enhancing the realistic feel and putting a magnifying glass to the consequences of our actions. However, this kind of narrative aspect requires heavier programming efforts, doesn't it?
Interesting point. Yes, the process of creating multiple plot paths can be quite challenging, but the resultant player engagement makes it worthwhile. It's a testament to Rockstar Games' vision of delivering a truly immersive narrative. In the end, this empowers the players, making their choices significant in shaping the world of Red Dead Redemption 2.
You know, Helena, speaking of player agency, the atmosphere of Red Dead Redemption 2 contributes significantly to the player experience. The richly detailed Wild West setting is practically a character in its own right. It makes decisions feel that much more intense. I mean, you're not just choosing between options in a menu. You're making choices in a world that feels alive. Doesn't that play a key role in the immersion factor?
Absolutely, Raymond. It isn't just about advancing in the game or unlocking a new mission. Each decision you make is part of your larger journey within this vivid, interactive environment. And it's this involvement that gives the players a compelling personal connection to the narrative.
So that attention to detail, that meticulous building of the environment, it isn't just for show, but directly impacts the player's involvement, right?
Yes, realism isn't exclusively visual. It's about the responsiveness of the game environment to player actions as well. And Red Dead Redemption 2 nails it by combining both visual and interactive realism. You'd agree that it's the juncture where game narrative and player choices meet, isn't it, Raymond?
I couldn't say it any better. The combination of detailed environment and immersive storytelling in Red Dead Redemption 2 allows players to truly live the narrative rather than just observe it from a distance. One interesting part to consider is how the Wild West setting plays a role in players' moral choices. I imagine the lawlessness of the era might encourage more ruthless strategies.
That's quite possible, highlighting that how we perceive the game world affects our decisions within it. You know what, Raymond? Discussing this makes me realize the extent to which Red Dead Redemption 2 successfully has us consider not just the what of our actions, but the why. Truly, a remarkable case of immersion.
Switching gears here, Helena, let's talk about the role-play features in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, definitely. The way role-playing meshes with the narrative is truly innovative.
Right? Whether you're hunting for survival, interacting with non-playable characters, or even taking care of your horse, each feels like they have a real impact on the unfolding narrative.
Exactly. And it's not just about survival or progression, is it? Every tiny action or decision shapes your character's image in the world, doesn't it?
Indeed, your morality can shift based on your actions, which then alters how other characters respond to you. One could argue that the game gives you an opportunity to live a nuanced, virtual life within the Wild West era.
This sense of control and resulting variety surely adds to the immersion.
Absolutely. It's like you're role-playing your own version of Arthur Morgan. The lines between the player and the character blur significantly, leading to a uniquely immersive story.
But isn't role-playing common in other games? What sets this experience apart, Raymond?
Well, what sets Red Dead Redemption 2 apart is the depth and the authenticity of its world. The game mechanics are seamlessly integrated into the narrative, making role-playing in this game an organic extension of your overall journey.
I see. It's the depth of involvement that becomes the core of narrative immersion.
And speaking of immersion, there are some truly extraordinary accounts of player experiences that reveal how engrossing the game is. There's this one post I remember. A player mentioned he felt a surprising sense of satisfaction after a long day of wandering, hunting, and interacting with strangers.
That's interesting. It illustrates how the players tend to lose themselves in this complex, well-realized world. Any more instances you know of, Raymond?
Sure, there's another story of a player who spent days caring for his horse, only to lose it during a shootout. The loss was genuinely heart-wrenching for him. It just shows the emotional involvement players have towards their characters' experiences.
Wow, those tales truly highlight the power of immersion in Red Dead Redemption 2. It's beyond just game mechanics or graphics, ultimately becoming a deeply personal experience.
Looking beyond the immersive gameplay and complex narrative, let's not forget the audio-visual elements of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, that's an essential part to discuss. The game's music definitely helps in setting the mood, doesn't it?
Yes, and it does so brilliantly. The game's music score, composed by Woody Jackson, implements a remarkable range of styles and instrumentation to evoke different emotions. It intensifies the action sequences, underscores the heavy and poignant moments, and even adds to the calm, ambient, and meditative periods of exploration. It's like an unseen narrator guiding players through the narrative.
And what about the visual aesthetics? Any thoughts on that, Raymond?
Yes, the visual aspect plays a huge role in amplifying the story. Red Dead Redemption 2 builds a visually stunning representation of the late 1800s Wild West. The landscapes, from snow-capped mountains to muddy towns to beastly forests, each provides a backdrop to different chapters of Arthur Morgan's journey, and it's not just about the grandeur of the world. Even smaller details like Arthur's facial expressions and dialogues add to the player's emotional resonance with the story.
Seems like the combination helps craft an emotional landscape where the music and visuals together narrate a tale as much as dialogues and actions do.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Helena. Now, let's look at online reactions to the game. According to ratings from different gamer review platforms, Red Dead Redemption 2 clearly hits the right chord of storytelling in games. Spurred by an aggregate score of 97/100, we see how public reception of the depth and immersion of the game aligns with our discussion today.
One anonymous fan on the IGN forums penned an entire essay on the moral choice elements of the game. They believed that the game created compelling characters brimming with depth and fault lines that humanize them most profoundly. Arthur's transformation across the chapters isn't just a character arc, but a mirror to our inner self.
That's definitely a fascinating viewpoint to consider. It's also been interesting to see how the game's open-world experience has been received differently by players based on their playstyles. Some have appreciated the restorative aspects of roaming the vast wilderness, while others were more captivated by the intensity of the outlaw shootouts.
I came across one reaction on Reddit from a player who was most absorbed into the Wild West survival simulator. Their strategy was to avoid the main storyline as much as possible and live off hunting and fishing. They claimed it gave them an unexpected sense of autonomy and immersion, far removed from the moral dilemmas tied to Arthur Morgan's narrative.
Interesting. There's also an interesting Twitter thread about Red Dead Redemption 2's ending. It's largely debated due to the player's choices affecting the outcome, leaving some with a sense of bittersweet redemption and others with rotten betrayal. The ending, for many players, tied up their personal journey with Arthur, making it a lasting emotional moment.
And let's not forget the community fan forums buzzing with players dissecting everything from the plot symbolisms, historical accuracies, to Easter eggs. All these reactions and more paint a wide spectrum of interpretations of the narrative that speak volumes about the intricate storytelling Red Dead Redemption 2 has to offer.
It truly does. Audience insights just reinforce the genius of Red Dead Redemption 2's narrative in echoing different sentiments across its fanbase. Helena, reflecting back on our rich and multifaceted discussion around Red Dead Redemption 2, it's apparent that it's not just a game, it's a revolution in storytelling and narratives.
That's an accurate description, Raymond. The way it allows players to tailor their own narrative experience, providing rich contexts for every choice they make. It's groundbreaking.
The game's mastery lies in weaving together an intricate narrative web that resonates with players. It pushes beyond the conventional game narrative frameworks, allowing for a far greater immersion.
And looking forward, this could potentially be the new trend in the gaming narratives, bridging the gap between players and characters. Red Dead Redemption 2 has set a high benchmark in this regard.
It's how the game manages to blend action sequences with impactful character development and meticulous dialogues that push its narrative envelope. The curious blend of personal stories within the bigger picture creates depth that usually we only see in media, like films and novels.
Right. They have given more power to the players, their choices and their interpretations. And it was such an enriching experience to hear about these various interpretations from the player reactions.
Absolutely. It's breathtaking to witness how games have evolved from simple entertainment mediums to create such complex, engaging narratives. Striking a balance between game mechanics and narrative, it's definitely no easy feat.
What an exciting journey we've had today into the narrative world of Red Dead Redemption 2. The evolution of storytelling through games takes yet another giant leap forward with this masterpiece, and we just can't wait to see where it leads next.